So welcome to the next lecture of the series PT 100. The topics that we'll be covering today would be social sector related laws, policies as well as schemes. So it would be three themes. So social sector is very vast. It is very difficult to cover every topic. So what I have collated is I have made important, you can say I have taken a gist of important laws which are you can say that are most important pertaining to the social sector. So before that we'll talk about what is the meaning of social sector. So whenever we say that we are dealing things with related to social sector, so the idea is we should make sure that we know the components. They are health, education, women, child, old age, social security net. Then we are talking about disabled. Apart from that, there are other many parts which are also included in the social sector aspect, but generally we need to know that there are different ministries which actually cover the social sectors, but the important ministries which govern these sectors are Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Second is Ministry of Education. Third is Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Fourth, Ministry of Women and Child Development. And fifth could be Ministry of Labor and Employment. Apart from that, there are other ministries also which are actually related in indirect way. So those important ministries could be Ministry of Agriculture, because agriculture is a very vast sector, because it employs the largest workforce in India. Apart from that, it has direct interaction as well as interlinking with the most of the population of India. Then we can also say that Ministry of Finance, all because all the decisions related to the schemes, the outgo and everything is related with the, you can say the top decisions are taken by the Finance Ministry, and there are various departments जो कि उसके अंदर रहते हैं. So that is why Ministry of Finance actually governs most of the policies as well as schemes. So these sectors are actually included as a part of social sector. So we will be seeing all the laws, specific policies, and then we'll wrap up with various important schemes. So let's start the session. So these are the, you can say, content. So we'll be covering various laws starting from dowry, then domestic violence of women, prohibition and protection, child marriage, prohibition, maintenance and welfare of parents and senior citizens, the sexual harassment of women, protection and prohibition. Apart from the child labor prohibition and regulation, SC/ST prevention of atrocities, Rights of Person with Disabilities Act, NFSA, because food security is one of the core aspects of social sector also. Apart from that, the rights of free and compulsory education, or the right to education. There was an act which actually enforced the provisions under the Article 21A of the fundamental rights of the Indian Constitution. Apart from that, we have EPF and Miscellaneous Provision Act. So these are a part of acts that we'll be covering as a part of social sector. Apart from that, we'll be covering the policies, specifically the Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao. It's an umbrella policy, so as to make sure that we have all those policies regarding improvement of child sex ratio in favor of women. Apart from that, there should be a financial empowerment by way of various saving schemes which have been launched under the scheme. Then we'll have national policy on older persons. Then recently two important policies, policy on education as well as policy on health, the national health policy. Then we'll be covering important schemes, the Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, which is an outcome of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Apart from that, Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana and senior citizen saving schemes, specifically for senior citizens. So these are pension schemes specifically targeting the senior citizens so as to make sure that they have assured return or assured income when they retire. Then we'll see the Ayushman Bharat, the holistic program under the, so as to make sure that we implement the provisions of the national health policy. Apart from that, Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana will see the fine prints so as to promote the generic medicines in India. Then Samagra Shiksha, a holistic program to cater to the needs of educational needs right from early childhood till secondary education. Then Poshan Abhiyan, our national nutritional mission, so as to make sure there is an umbrella scheme to have holistic impact on the outcome based nutritional program and also eradicate malnutrition from India. Mission Shakti, specifically targeting women empowerment. Then there would be various pension schemes like Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandhan Yojana, Krishi Mandhan Yojana, and apart from that there would be Atal Pension Yojana that will be covering. And then Rashtriya Vayoshri Yojana, specifically those disabled senior citizens who belong from the old age category and are below poverty line. So these are the schemes that we'll be covering. So quickly we'll be moving to the laws. The first law, that is Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. So it defines dowry, which includes any property, goods or money which is exchanged between the two parties. So dowry is prohibited, you can say giving also and taking also. So both these things need to be regulated. How they are regulated? By way of exchanging a list of items which are exchanged during the, you can say, all the procession like marriage and all those things. So both the parties exchange the values, the identity of the person who are actually exchanging those items, as well as the relationship with the party. So जितने भी आपस में जो भी गिफ्ट्स होते हैं, इसलिए इनको आपस में एक्सचेंज करते हैं लिस्ट का. But that was an old act. Now what happens? We have video recordings. So that is also admissible in the court of law. Earlier we did not have any, you can say, picture or anything. So we needed to have those lists getting listed and approved that okay, both those parties have actually exchanged these much amount of gifts amounting to that much value. But now we have video recordings and snapshots, the pictures that are admissible in the court of law. Specifically, this prohibits dowry, but that does not prohibit gifts. So whatever gifts are being given, that is allowed, but that does not means, so there is a difference between dowry versus gift. Gift is voluntary. Dowry is subtle, coercive. Subtle, coercive in the sense it is being forced, not directly. It may be directly or it may be subtle. It may be indirect also, but that also comes under dowry and that is also prohibited. Like openly मुंह से मांग लेना कि हमें इतना चाहिए जी. That is open, overt, इतना हमें चाहिए. That is open violation of this act. But there is another way कि हमने बोला हमें चाहिए नहीं, अगर आप अपने बच्चे को ये दे देते तो बहुत अच्छा रहता. That is a kind of covert, that is a kind of subtle coercion, subtle push कर रहे हैं. That also comes under dowry. But what happens कि अगर शादी के समय if you are giving gifts and that is based on your wish rather than any forceful thing, that is allowed, but you need to also maintain a list, else you cannot claim that that was a part of dowry. Okay, that is the idea behind Dowry Prohibition Act, and this act is, you can say, one of the act which makes sure that the institution of marriage is more like solemnizing two families rather than based on any monetary exchange. But actually it is, you can say, these things are often violated in real terms. That is one of the idea. Then we'll see the next act. So the next act is Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. So we have various provisions in IPC, the Indian Penal Code, but because we did not have any relevant statutory backing or a law nahi tha, that is why we have brought a specific law to target domestic violence which is faced by women. So who could be the aggrieved party? Woman, only woman can be the aggrieved party or the petitioner which can file. It cannot be the other way around. If a woman is actually perpetuating any kind of violence on a male, then the male cannot go to court of law and say that we want protection under this particular act, because it specifically mentions woman. But how those relations which are defined, as to which all relations are defined under which women get protection, that is not only based on marriage but also based on blood. So what is the difference between marriage and blood wala relation? Exactly, those in-laws. So if a woman feels that she is being subjected to certain kind of violence, and the definition of violence is also broad based, that includes physical violence, at the same time emotional, verbal, sexual and psychological abuse also, and that also includes economic violence. So what is the idea behind economic violence? If the particular woman is not been given any amount, any money to spend on herself, that is under the Domestic Violence Act, because it is a kind of psychological abuse. She is not getting any freedom to spend some amount of money. So that comes under domestic violence. So it could be physical violence or it could be mental also. So verbal abuse, any sexual act which is against the order of nature, that also comes under this kind of Domestic Violence Act. So marriages by based of created relations and also by way of blood, like brother, violence on sister, or father, violence on her daughter or his daughter. So these also come under, so daughter can go to the court and file a case under the Domestic Violence Act if the father also behaves in a way that is coming under a kind of physical abuse or emotional, all those sorts of abuse. So that the lady also gets these kinds of protection. Apart from that, Supreme Court in the recent, many of the judgment has also given that if mother also does any kind of violence on daughter, then daughter is free to go. So this gender is defined for this particular party, but the other party could be any gender. It is not defined only the opposite gender would be doing the violence. It could be any gender or it could be any relation. So if a daughter sees that her mother is also not giving these are actually doing these types of violences, then she can go to the court. So this is the idea. Apart from that, Supreme Court has also widened the definition wherein live-in relationships and legally invalid marriages. So that even if the person has given divorce, sometimes what happens, even after giving divorce, the lady lives in the house of the husband, just on the hope that that can be undone, the divorce can be undone and they could be again go into an institution of marriage. In the meantime, if the lady also is living without having a value of marriage and the husband does any kind of violence, the lady can go for this protection of women under the Domestic Violence Act, the lady can file the case. So this is the idea. Then we'll see Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006. So it specifically defines the legal age to get married. So for females, it is, so what is the legal age for females? 18 years, and males 21 years. So our bill is pending wherein this age is being talked to be raised to 21 years. So what the government is thinking, that the government is trying to increase the age, legal age of marriage for females, increasing it to 21 years. But there are certain definitions, certain restrictions and certain conditions. Suppose there was child marriage, like the male or the female got married at 16 years of age, the marriage will not be annulled. Sir, voice clear nahi ho rahi hai. Now is it clear? Actually, I am having a sore throat, so there is an issue with me also. I am having an issue with sore throat, so kindly cooperate. So we'll go with, if you are having any issue regarding the volume, we can get it rectified. Okay. Okay. Suppose the marriage happened at the age of 16 years. The marriage will not be annulled at that time only. It is at the time of 18 years. Suppose the girl reaches the age of 18 years, then the girl can file for annulment of marriage. So that gives a period ki 2 saal ke beech mein wo, she lives with her parents, and after 18 years, if she feels that she wants annulment of the marriage, then the marriage can be annulled. And if she wants that marriage to continue, then it is continued. But at the time of marriage, if the two marrying parties, they get caught or there is an issue, if the police arrives, then this marriage cannot happen and the particular person would be prosecuted under the Child Marriage Act. So this is the idea. If marriage happened, then it cannot be done. If before the marriage was just about to be happen, or all the vows needed to be exchanged, then there is a cooling off period of 2 years. Till 20, if the person reaches or the lady reaches the age of 18 years, the girl, then she has the freedom to decide whether she wants annulment of marriage or not. अगर 2 साल के अंदर के बाद, if she feels the marriage can be annulled or cancelled. This age is being also thought to be raised to 5 years. So the idea is the government wants कि ये जो 5 साल का पीरियड 2 साल से बढ़ा के अब इसको 5 साल कर दो कि अगर वो और भी ज़्यादा टाइम लेना, सपोज शी इज स्टडिंग, शी इज़ अंडर एनी एजुकेशन, हायर एजुकेशन प्रोग्राम, तो आफ्टर कमिंग बैक फ्रॉम एजुकेशन शी फील्स दैट शी डज नॉट वांट टू कंटिन्यू इन द सेम मैरिज, शी कैन अन्यूल द मैरिज. तो एक कूलिंग ऑफ पीरियड को बड़ा कर दिया गया. दैट इज़ द आइडिया. 16 में किया गया तभी तो होगा, और 18 के प्लस किया रहेगा तो 18 से 23 हो जाएगा. फिर वो 5 साल, 16 किया होगा तो 21 साल, मैक्सिमम अप टू 23 ईयर्स हो जाएगा, क्योंकि 18 से काउंट करेंगे 5 साल. दैट इज़ द 18 से 23 साल तक कर दिया जाएगा वो. दैट इज़ द आइडिया. 5 साल का गैप बन रहा है. दिस इज़ द आइडिया. This is actually no, the constitution does not define any act of marriage or any legal age of marriage. It is this particular act that defines whether marrying before this age is a criminal offense or not. So it defines marrying below this age as a criminal offense rather than prohibiting marriage. अगर वो marriage होने से बचा रहा है, marriage हो गया, फिर हमारे पास वो cooling off period है वो 2 साल का. इंस्टेंट नहीं हटते हैं वो, फिर हटा दिया जाता है, उनको अपने अपने घर भेज दिया जाएगा. दैट इज़ द आइडिया, टू मेक श्योर दैट कि द पर्सन हैज़ द डिसीजन मेकिंग एबिलिटी. बट देयर इज़ एन इशू विद दिस एज getting raised to 21 years. That gives an anomaly because the legal age in India for a person to be considered as adult is 18 years. So if this is being raised to 21 years, so either you are saying that in the period between 18 to 21 years the person does not have the, autonomy to decide how to choose the partner, even at the cost of choosing the party in terms of voting. हर चीज़ में the person is allowed, even freedom to drive, licenses मिल सकते, but still he is not allowed, or the person or she is not allowed to choose her partner. So there is an anomaly. Ideally it should be reduced. World over, the legal ages of marriages are between the age 17 and 18 years only. India is going overboard, just thinking that by just keeping this age to 21 years, they will make sure that the women would go to higher educational institutions. But that is not the idea. अगर आप उसको बढ़ा भी दोगे, that won't be a good start, so as to make sure that we also ensure higher education में जो gross enrollment ratio for females also going up. This is not a good thing. So there is a debate on this also. That is why it has been not passed. Then there is another act, Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act. So maintenance and welfare of parents, and there is a legal binding on the person or daughter, son. Apart from that, there are other relations also, like granddaughter, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, to maintain their parents or grandparents if the parents do not have economic capability to maintain on their own. The idea is that they should be given certain amount of economic money should be given to them. So there is a monthly allowance that needs to be paid. If the parents are not earning, they are not having any source of pension, so a monthly allowance is given by, there is a tribunal which looks into it, and the maximum amount that can be given is rupees 10,000 monthly. And this is a legal act. Suppose the party or the person who was responsible to maintain the senior citizens, the legal relationships, if he abandons that senior citizen, it becomes a criminal offense. So that person could be jailed, at the same time can also be fined. So this is the idea. It's a maintenance. So this is one of the act that protects the collectivistic culture of Indian society, wherein at the initial years it is the parents who have moral responsibility as well as the fundamental duty to educate their child and give them best of the education. As per the fundamental duty, it has been added. But when they retire and when they become old, it should be the moral responsibility of the child to maintain their parents or the senior citizens with whom they have relations. So this is the idea behind the collectivistic culture of Indian society, which is getting legally backed. Now the next act is Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act. So this was based on which particular guideline? What was that particular guideline? Sorry, Vishak. So there was a lady, there's a story to it, Banwari Devi. This particular act, there was a history to it. In 1992, she was a government official, state government official. She was doing her duty, wherein she was given the task of ensuring that child marriages are protected, prohibited, and she went to a village wherein she stopped child marriage. But because of caste difference, she was raped. And she fought, but still she was not, because she lost the particular case. And those culprits, they were set free because of legal loopholes. So because of that, there were various NGOs that simultaneously from all the corners of India, they put a PIL. And because one NGO named Visakha, it was a you can say consortium of various NGO. So because of that, Supreme Court admitted the PIL and gave a specific guideline which defined the meaning of the, you can say, all the offense, sexual offenses, and as to what should be the standard operating procedure if a sexual offense at workplace is reported. Those collectivistic guidelines came to be known as Vishaka guidelines. It was given in 1997. See, 1992 case, she lost it in the High Court. She lost the case. In 1997, PIL was filed in 1995 only. In 1997, the guideline was given and a particular act was passed that was modeled on the guidelines which was given by the Supreme Court. So, we have this act. So, it defines meaning of sexual offense, formation of internal complaints committee, so that this particular act is applicable to all those, you can say, workplaces where 10 or more people are working and at least one of them is a female. So this needs to be processed, this particular committee needs to be formed, and if there is any sexual offense that is reported, the cases need to be redressed in 30 days. Either by the committee or the district administration would take over this matter. It is an independent committee that is formed with an independent member also, as well as some of the members from within the organization.
When someone report a case or पहले से ही बनी हुई है committee?
No, that the committee needs to be, the idea is this committee needs to be published. If you go out and see, there is an internal committee, this has been listed in this particular organization also. होना ही चाहिए, because else how would the agreed party know where to go? The person needs to know ना कि इसके पास जाके कंप्लेन करना है. Every organization which has 10 or more people working needs to form this. नहीं हाँ काम कर रही है तो हाँ. This is all about women only. But this is the only act which specifically mentioned that there is protection for false cases also. Ideally, acts do not mention what would be the, you can say, relief if a false case is filed. This particular act specifically mentioned. Okay. Then we have Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Amendment Act. The original act was passed in 1986. So there was a modification or amendment in 2016 wherein there were two categories of children defined. One was child, other was adolescent. Child up to 14 years of age, and this is 14 to 18 years of age. This particular act prohibits any form of employment for child, any form. It could be hazardous or it could be non-hazardous also, like domestic help. Earlier act, domestic help was not considered to be a hazardous act, hazardous employment, so child could be employed. But this specific act specifically mentions all forms of employment in this category, child category. But in the adolescent category, there is a provision of only hazardous industries or hazardous enterprises. Specifically, those hazardous employments are mining, explosives, and those occupations which are mentioned in the Factories Act 1948. But there are two exceptions for child. If the child is working in family owned business, then that won't be considered as a part of child labor if that is being done after school hour. After school hour, if the child helps in family enterprises, that won't be considered as a part of child labor. And other is, if the child is engaged in certain kind of acting, then that won't be considered as a part of child labor. But there are certain rules also it, that particular acting should not hamper the foundational education of the child. So if the particular child has foundational educations, that is more, you can say, at a higher priority, that particular child needs to be given, you can say, break to complete his or her foundational education. Then only she or he can rejoin the acting. So this is the provision. Although these are violated in sense because there are certain loopholes also, because earlier we had many hazardous hazardous activities. Now it has been reduced to merely 3. So all those activities like जो हाउस रोड साइड ढाबा पे काम करना, तो वहाँ पे कहीं अलाउड हो जाता है, वो सब चीज़ प्रोविज़न है वहाँ पर, क्योंकि देयर इज़ अ हेजीनेस as to how to define is it the child is adolescent or a particular child in normal sense, because आधार केस बेस्ड जो हमारा डेटा होता है and the biological age, that could be totally different because we do not have any authentic birth certificates. So that is why the government is planning, and this government has passed that it is mandatory to have birth certificate, and this act has been passed recently. So now it is mandatory in every sense that if a person is born, then that person needs to have a birth certificate, because that defines the biological age as well as the legal age. So that is one of the difference, that the difference between the biological age and legal age, this loophole is used in many of the cases. Like in that case in 2013 we had that horrendous rape case where the biological age and the legal age, there was a difference, and that led to that particular culprit tried under the Juvenile Justice Act rather than tried as a criminal or hardcore criminal. So these are the cases, because had we had those birth certificates at that time, that would have ensured that this particular age becomes the legal age. So this is the only reason we have made sure, the government has made sure that reproduction of birth certificate, or the creation of birth certificate now has become mandatory. Now this Prevention of Atrocity Act, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So this particular act is only applicable to the SCs and the ST communities, not to the OBC community. If they feel, the OBC community feel that they are also aggrieved, they can go to the NCBC, and that would be tried on case to case basis. So we have NCSC and NCST. These are the national commissions specifically looking into the rights and matters of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, but they also have legal provisions or legal backing, all because all the actions which are, you can say, demeaning the character of SC ST people by way of certain acts. बहुत से ऐसे immoral acts which are perpetrated by people from most of the other castes. So these are specifically prohibited if the particular aggrieved party belongs from the SC or the ST communities. But if the person belongs from the OBC community, all those castists comment or any act, then the channel is going to NCBC only, and it would be tried based on case to case. So there are different acts, and the idea is speedy trial and stringent punishment, just to make sure that the discrimination, the prohibition of discrimination. Article 15 specifically mentions that right against discrimination on certain grounds. So to make sure to realize the vision of Article 15, POA Act has been formed, and there have been subsequent amendments to it, like in 2015, 2016, 2018. Either the punishment or the activities are enlarged, the prohibited activities or actions, or the mechanism through which this particular case could be filed is also modified to suit the changing nature of the order, the real world. Now, Rights of Persons with Disability Act. So this particular act has actually increased the number of disabilities from earlier 7 to 21. It includes not only physical but also intellectual as well as speech and learning based disability, like stuttering. This is now a disability, and the person could be using certain provisions. There are certain protections against it, and also there are certain reservations and affirmative actions. Now, to make sure that these visions are realized, the government has a comprehensive scheme, Sugam Bharat Abhiyan, wherein all the infrastructure starting from the government infrastructure is being retrofitted with all the disability free provisions like ramps and all those things which are there, so as to make sure that people with disability like blind or those who could not walk, they can access the government services by going to those infrastructural places. So these are the apart from that, there are various mass campaigns and awareness programs which are also being regularly organized under this Sugam Bharat Abhiyan. And there is a provision of reservation, and that has been increased from 3% to 5% of the total seats in education and employment. But there is a definition of benchmark disability. Minor disability, on the ground of minor disability, the person would not be having the benefits of all those reservations. There are various types of benchmark disability in terms of blindness, in terms of deafness. There are many other things also. Then a person, if the person goes above the cutoff, then that person can get the reservation under the central pool or the central quota. So this is the idea behind the reservation and increasing the reservation. Now, National Food Security Act. So it ensures food security as well as nutritional security. So it is like legally binding for the government to ensure that majority of the, or to ensure that those population which are not having the capability to source food for themselves, it is legally binding for the government to ensure food for them. So based on that, the government has divided households into 4 groups. The Antyodaya, those who are at the lowest bottom, those who are wholly dependent on the government. They get 35 kg per family per month food grains. Apart from that, priorities, general, and those who are excluded. So there is an exclusion list to it. There are various categories of, you can say, if the person owns a two-wheeler, if the person has pakka houses, there are many other categories. If the person is into those categories, those households are automatically excluded. And to realize those vision, we had National Food Security Mission, then this particular National Food Security Mission has been changed to Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. So this is the act, but this is the scheme which ensures that the provisions of the acts are actually implemented, and this particular act has made sure that it is completely free of cost. Earlier, only Antyodaya people used to get food free of cost, else there was a price of rupees 3, rupees 2 and rupee 1 for course. I guess this was for wheat and this for rice. But now, because we have this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, everything is all free of cost, and all the payments is being borne by the government in terms of the food security subsidy.
सर अब जैसे पहले बीपीएल और एपीएल होता था, अब
है
वो किस चीज़ में काम करता है?
देखो क्या था ना, we had two things during that. We had official poverty line that defined BPL. Apart from that, we also had this socio-economic caste census data that used to define those excluded and exclusion comprehensive list. But now we also have this BPL. It is getting continued, all because we have not updated the official poverty line. We are just extrapolating those things. So all those households which were there covered under those things, if they are again excluded under this, then they are move out of BPL category. If they are fulfilling those criteria of inclusion list, then they are considered as BPL. Earlier we had two sets. पहले ये BPL. Idea was if they are BPL, they would be under this inclusion list. Now we are only dependent on SCCC data. So based on that, so whosoever family which were there in BPL, they continue if they are not excluded as a part of exclusion category. Okay.
मतलब उसमें सिर्फ एक्सक्लूजन के पैरामीटर्स
हाँ, inclusion. The idea is everyone is included if there is वो पैरामीटर exclude हो गए कि नहीं हो गए, ठीक है ना, exclusion list होते हैं वो. Now we have Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009. So first we had this Constitutional Amendment Act. Which was that particular act? 86th Constitutional Amendment Act, which inserted Article 21A, the right to education. But this is a broad guideline by the Constitution. We needed a particular act also to realize the vision of right to education. So to enforce the fundamental right, we parallelly passed this particular act, and to realize all the broad guidelines of the act, we had also rules that defines. It's a very holistic act, and rules which define what should be the criteria, and based on those acts, there's a definition like 25% of the seats in private schools needs to be reserved for EWS category, and this particular act is only applicable for 6 to 14 years of age schooling. So that defines schooling from class 1 till which class? This compulsory education, free and compulsory till class 8th. So that only includes primary education and upper primary education. Primary and upper primary. In informal sense, upper primary is also known as middle schools. 1 to 5 is primary and 6 to 8 are middle schools or upper primary. But there is specific scheme also which is the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, that holistically caters to those under these acts. Apart from that, 3 to 6 and 14 to 18. So from 3 till 18, from preschooling till class 12th, those are covered under Samagra Shiksha. But Samagra Shiksha is only applicable to government schools. This is applicable to all the schools. There is no discrimination on any school. So if the particular child is eligible and there is a school nearby, then that particular child could be admitted to the private school under the EWS category. There was a specific movie which was released, and that movie was English medium or Hindi medium, I guess. Hindi medium, that shows how many private schools violate that 25% criteria EWS. They try to flout rules. Even the people also flout rules. Many rich people also try to get their child admitted under this EWS through various other unfair means. So that was the idea behind this particular movie, that showed how these rules are getting violated. Apart from that, this is a very broad rule, broad guideline, so that defines pupil to teacher ratio also, the infrastructure that should be needed. Apart from that, the upgradation in curriculum, apart from that, the upgradation in the way teachers are teaching, the pedagogy, everything needs to be, you can say, maintained as per the rules which are defined under the Act. This is the idea, okay. Now we have Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008. For organized workers, we have EPF and MP Act 1952, Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provision Act 1952. Apart from that, we also have ESIC Act, Employees State Insurance Corporation. So these are applicable to organized sector. So there was a gap for unorganized sector, like casual workers, self-employed people, those vendors, street vendors, etc. So those are included under the Act and it talks about all those facilities which are extended to organized sector in through these particular acts, that should also be extended to or people from unorganized sector, specifically the life and disability cover, the health insurance, the maternity benefit, old age pension, protection and pension. So these should also be extended to or people from unorganized sector. So although this is mere an act, there are no concrete rules, but we, because of Code on Social Security, so all the labor codes have been codified into 4 specific codes. Which are those codes? Code on wages, Code on Social Security, Code on Industrial Relations, and the last is Code on Occupational Health, Safety and Working Conditions. So all those acts which are pertaining to the labor, there are various acts, like 29 acts have been subsumed into these 4 codes. So this particular code, so this defines the wage related aspects like Minimum Wages Act, all those acts related to the wage aspects, payment of wages, payment of gratuity, all those acts have been subsumed into coded codes on wages. Simultaneously, the Social Security Act has subsumed the Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provision Act, ESIC Act, Maternity Benefit Act, similarly Unorganized Workers Social Security Act. Similarly, there are the other Industrial Relations Act also, and code on occupational health, safety and working conditions. So this particular code on social security talks about Social Security Welfare Board of India for the unorganized sector, which should be modeled on the lines of EPFO. So EPFO works for organized and semi-organized sector. So on a parallel lines, this particular code envisages, feels that there should be a particular board that should be working for the unorganized workers. But now the government has halted or delayed the implementation of these codes. So after these codes are getting implemented, we will have parallel body for unorganized workers also. So that is the idea.
जो ईश्रम का कार्ड बन रहा है
E-Shram is a different thing. E-Shram is just like a portal which tries to map all those unorganized workers based on their skill sets. It is like a repository is being created, a central repository wherein all those unorganized workers, they will be registering themselves and also mentioning the skill set that they possess, and based on that there would be a central repository in future. Suppose a government tries to come up with a plan or certain unemployment assurance or unemployment benefit program. So then that particular portal, the data of that particular portal would be helpful for the government to devise various schemes and plans according to the data that they collated. So this is the idea of E-Shram. So that is also applicable to the only unorganized sector. All because organized sectors data are getting captured through various other sources also, like EPF data, ESIC data, and also Ministry of Corporate Affairs also holds many of the data. Okay, so this is that National Social Security Board that I am talking about, that is specifically mentioned in the code on social security. Once that particular codes get implemented, we'll have notification on the implementation or the formation of this particular board that would work on lines of EPFO only. Okay. Now we have the next act, which is you can say the act EPF and MP Act for the organized sector. For the organized sector. So this act is like a constitution for labor in India. It's a mini constitution.
और ये सर
It's so
गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉयज के लिए या प्राइवेट एम्प्लॉयज के लिए
it includes all the organized worker. It defines any enterprise having 20 or more workers. That is compulsory for them to get themselves registered to EPFO. It is mandatory for them. So this particular act actually, you can say, runs three schemes. One is Employees Provident Fund scheme, that is related to the pension fund. It is not pension scheme, it is pension fund, which is known as Provident Fund. What is that pension and provident fund? Any fund which is definitely contributed or benefit based, which is given as lump sum amount, as a total amount at the time of retirement. At the time of retirement of that particular employee, the lump sum amount whatsoever was contributed, as well as all the interest that accrues on it, the lump sum amount is given at the time of employment, at the time of retirement. That is the pension fund or the provident fund. Then the second scheme is Employees Deposit Link Insurance Scheme. It is a kind of life insurance scheme. So there is a maximum life insurance in case the particular employee dies and if he has subscribed to that EPFO, the maximum life insurance that could be given is rupees 7.5 lakh to the survivor or to the beneficiary. That is a kind of life insurance scheme for employee. Then third is employees pension scheme 1995. So apart from provident fund bulk amount, the EPF subscriber also get pensions which ranges from rupees 1000 per month to rupees 7500 per month. So all those government employee, they get pension out of the budget. We are talking about those employees which are getting pension from EPFO.
जो गवर्नमेंट बजट से देती है वो यहीं से
नहीं,
वो अलग से
वो अलग. It is charged or it is paid from the consolidated fund of India. But this is a pension which is paid by EPFO based on their corpus. EPFO maintains corpus, the amount which is subscribed to by the subscriber, which is paid by the subscriber, the employee part as well as the employer part. So there is a mandate of 12% of gross pay. It is generally gross pay or basic pay. It depends on the employer to employer. What is the 12%? So 12% of it by employer as well as employee. दोनों का corpus 12% each goes to EPFO, and EPFO distributes this into these three components based on the percentage. 12% employer का भी आया, 12% employee का भी आया, और उसमें से 8.33 I guess % of the employer or employee goes to the pension scheme. इस तरह से that particular corpus gets divided into these three schemes. So the employer is debited only 12%, employee is also simultaneously debited 12%, and EPFO distributes that particular amount into these three schemes so as to make sure they have sufficient amount to fund these schemes.
करने का तरीका आप खुद आप आगे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम करते हो तो आप खुद सब
No. At the time whenever you join that organization, it is the organization which has subscribed to EPFO, and you are just given a form to fill. Okay, you are becoming the part of EPFO. It is the employer only who will debit that 12%. It would be the headache of employer only, not the employee. Only if the employee resigns, then the onus on getting the amount whatsoever has been deposited, then that should be done by the employee. If the particular employee goes till retirement, then it would be the employer only that would be giving all those corpuses back to the employee at the time of retirement. खुद से कुछ नहीं करना पड़ता फिर. नहीं समझ में आया. अगर हमने कहीं ज्वाइन किया और हमने 60 साल तक वहाँ काम किया, the age of retirement is 60 years, I'll be getting all the employee would be getting every benefits. It is up to the employer only to get all those administrative work done. But what if the employee resigns after 2 years? He would have certain deposits in EPFO, then employer won't be giving any assist. You will be having a permanent. I'm not sure. There's a universal account number, UAN, that is given to you. Then you need to go to UAN, universal account, punch the data and do all the formalities to get the money. Suppose 2 साल के बाद हमें पैसा चाहिए and we are not employed, then the person needs to go to that particular EPFO site and punch the data and give all the details, then only money would be refunded.
और वो भी सर रिटायरमेंट
नहीं. If the person resigns after 2 years, after 1 year, the idea, if the person is remaining employed for 1 month, then he can claim 75% of the deposit whatsoever was deposited. If the person remains unemployed for 2 months, then 100%. But the onus on proving of getting unemployed is on the employee. he needs to give a declaration that I remained unemployed for the 2 months, so I am withdrawing all the corpuses which was remaining with the EPFO. Okay. UPSC won't be asking, it's all about EPFO. जब exam होगा UPSC won't be asking to these are all administrative things which are there in the act. And who administers this particular EPFO? It is not the government, it is the Central Board of Trustees. So EPFO का corpus, how much is the corpus of EPFO? Any idea? कितना amount होगा EPFO के पास? It's roughly 17 lakh crore. So that is very huge, too much. And it is not the government which is actually managing it, else the government would be trying to fund their fiscal deficit out of it. So there is a Central Board of Trustees, which is a tripartite body. What is the meaning of tripartite? 3 things: representatives from employer, representatives from employee. There are various bodies, organizations होते हैं, वहाँ से represent employees and representatives of the government, and government representative could be central also and state. बहुत बड़ी body है, 30 member body है, 30 or 31 member. And who is the chairman of that CBT, Central Board of Trustee? It is the minister who is in charge of Ministry of Labor. Labor minister जो होता है ना, he is the in charge. And this particular ministry, this particular Central Board of Trustees is the one which notifies the interest that would be given on the EPF corpus. It's study under that EPF MP Act. Okay. There are 2 things. Provident fund in India are of 3 types. One is Employees Provident Fund, which is applicable for all organized, specifically mainly private organization ही करते हैं. Second is PPF, Public Provident Fund. This is maintained by Ministry of Finance as Small Saving Fund. This is a small saving fund. We know this. Small saving scheme होता है, small saving fund है. There is a limit of 1.5 lakh investment. This is called Public Provident Fund. Anyone who is citizen of India can subscribe. Anyone, right from the birth till death. 18 साल 14 साल का कोई क्रेडिट पैदा होने से आप PPF में खोल सकते हैं अकाउंट. And third is GPF. It is the Government Provident Fund. So whosoever are government employees, they get Provident Fund out of GPF. नहीं वो अलग ही चीज़ है. EPF Act only works for this. PPF is a not governed by any act, it's a scheme, small saving scheme, and GPF is governed by the various state and the central governments. By opening a PPF account with any of the public sector bank, कोई भी बैंक से भी, सर private banks में भी, but the limit of investment is maximum 1.5 lakh rupees per year. ठीक है, minimum is rupees 1000. Okay, don't go deep into it, बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाएगा. Sukanya Samriddhi is also similar to small saving scheme. It's like BPF only, but specifically for girl child because it has been started under the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme. We'll see those things. आ ही गया. Beti Bachao Beti Padhao. To address the concern related to gender discrimination and ensuring women empowerment, but the core aim is improving the child sex ratio because it is going down, but now it has started improving. In NFHS 5 survey, this child sex ratio has been found to be increasing now, all because of various affirmative measures like reservations, like benefits under taxation. There is a scheme known as Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana. We get that taxation benefits like registry benefits. Suppose any asset which is registered in the name of woman, the registry charges are generally 1 to 2% lower. And if the amount of registry is, suppose if the amount of that particular asset is 50 lakhs, so 2% would be 1 lakh rupee. So 1 lakh rupee is a very good amount. So that gives an incentives for that particular person to have more girl child, and also give assets in the name of girl child. So this is an umbrella, you can say, campaign, and there are various schemes all which have been brought in. And these are all the provisions ensuring the gender equality and women empowerment, preventing gender biased, sex selective elimination or abortion, ensuring survival and protection of the girl child, and encourage education and participation of the girl child in every decision making or the core decision making. Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana is a direct outcome of BBBP. Okay. Then we have National Policy on Older Persons, specifically senior citizens. What is that policy? So these policies are broad policies. Don't go deep into those, because these policies won't be asked in terms of fine prints. It is all the schemes that needs to be dealt in details, and that too flagship schemes. We'll see that there are many schemes. It is very difficult to know everything about all the schemes. So it is all about financial and food security, healthcare, shelter, and other needs of older persons. The one is, we have Maintenance of Parents and Senior Citizen Act. But from where this act was created? Based on broad policy on older person. And we have various other schemes also for older persons, like old age pension schemes, like this Maintenance and Welfare of Senior Citizen Act. Then we have Rashtriya Vayoshri Yojana, wherein various aids are given for those who are disabled. So various schemes and acts are framed under a broader policy. First a policy is brought out, then to realize the vision of those policies, various acts and schemes are simultaneously brought out. So these are the idea, the equitable share in development, all because we know that how much is it is 10.5 crore, currently around about 10.5 crore people are old age in India, and it is expected to reach up to 22 crore. So 22 crore would be the number of old age people by 2050, and it is growing at a very rapid rate. So we need to have specific policies so as to make sure by that time we have enough statutory provisions, schemes, and also those corpus, so as to make sure that there is no extra fiscal burden or any policy vacuum when we tackle a huge population at that time. So that is why we have brought in various policies, and these are revised as per the changing trends. So it's all about improving their quality of life and also making sure that they are protected from various abuses and exploitations, because they are dependent. Below 15 to 59, this is the working age population. Below this and above this, they are dependents. So that there should be certain state interventions also, like in terms of acts and policies for these sections of people who do not have economic capability and also physical capability. Okay. Now this is one of the most holistic policy which has been recently brought in. We won't be going deep, it's very broad based. We'll see final provisions. So the idea is to change the education system by making sure that the education system is more experiential based. Current education system is more assessment based. It is the examination results, or we can say the final outcome that defines whether a person is knowing that particular thing or not. To change those things, we have brought in a holistic change in the education policy, where experience based learning, critical thinking skills, critical thinking skills, those qualities would be imparted rather than having frequent assessments. So that would change the whole pedagogy. So what is the current pedagogy? What is the meaning of pedagogy? It is the way how curriculum and education is imparted, the way, the whole framework. The current pedagogy in India for school education is 10 plus 2. It would transform into 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 model. What is that? It is 12 years only. Sorry, 15 years. Current is 12 years. So what we have incorporated, those 3 pre-years, pre-schooling years have also been included so as to make it more comprehensive and holistic. So it is a more comprehensive. It starts from preschooling till class 12th. Apart from that, there is a special focus on vocational education or skill based training that should be imparted at the time of school education only. The idea is not everyone is inclined towards research and all those educations. Those people or those children who feel that they have various skill sets wherein they can earn more, those skill sets should be identified and honed when they are young. The phrase is catch them young. Catch them young. So when they have those skill sets, try to identify it and hone that skill at the earlier age so as to make sure that when they reach the earning capability, they have a very, you can say, experienced skill sets rather than finding for skill sets that matches their interest and also the market at that time. So what is that 5 plus 3 plus 3 model? First would be focused on foundational stage. That would be 3 years of schooling, preschooling, which is specifically known as Anganwadi in government. This has been changed into another name known as Bal Vatika. So earlier we used to say it, preschool is kindergarten. Just before kindergarten and the KGs, LKG and UKG. This is the preschooling. Prep school, LKG, UKG, nursery, LKG. This is the but this has been changed into, for the government, there's a scheme known as Integrated Child Development Scheme, ICDS, that runs Anganwadi, and that name has been changed to Bal Vatika. So that includes 3 years of that. Apart from that, it includes class 1 and 2. Class 1 and 2. So pre plus 1 plus 2. 5 years. This won't have any books. No books. No, we can say books से ज़्यादा experienced based critical decision making blocks and all those things would be included rather than making those books based education. ठीक है? नहीं वो तो अलग अलग होता है, तीनों का लेवल तो अलग अलग है ना, अलग अलग होते हैं. Then we'll have preparatory school, that would specifically be 3 to 5, wherein elementary mathematics, elementary language would be imparted. Elementary levels of all those math, science and all those things would be imparted. Then at the middle stage, the classes 6 to 8, it would be built upon the interests which are shown. And that point only vocational education would be introduced. Vocational education would be introduced at that 7th or 8th के point पे vocational education would be introduced. Then the last stage would be Secondary stage, which would be more about those competitive examinations, or if the person feels or the child feels that he is not made for those competitive examinations, he or she can opt out and go for those vocational based schooling rather than going for those competitive examinations for NEET, JEE and all those stuffs. So this is the idea. So it is based on Piaget. There was a psychologist known as Piaget. He had actually given the whole idea about developmental psychology. So this is a part of developmental psychology. He had given it how the intellectual ability of a child progresses. So based on the intellectual ability, we need to give them suitable training. So that is based on this idea. And apart from that, we'll also move from those traditional math, science, English. We'll use interdisciplinary approach, and coding would also be introduced. So what is that interdisciplinary approach? Wherein many things we won't have segmented thing wherein science, maths and education, social science would be defined in a more compartmentalized way. Rather than we'll have many things combined together, wherein literature and maths would go all along, because the education is not about कि किसी को मैथ्स आता है तो साइंस में अच्छा होगा कि नहीं होगा. कभी कभी किसी का लिटरेचर अच्छा होता है और उसको दूसरी चीज़ में मज़ा आता है. सपोज आई एम ए मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर, बट आई हैव अ गुड एफिनिटी टुवर्ड्स इकोनॉमिक एंड ऑल दोज थिंग्स. Had I been given those opportunity of getting those economics mastered during my engineering years also, had there been those interdisciplinary, you can say, curriculum, I would have excelled in that particular field also. So this is the idea. A person is not segment. If a person is good in mathematics, that does not mean he is good at every fields of mathematics. There should be intermixing and you can say discipline that should be allowed. So this should be also given in the earlier foundational years also. Now this is more about the school education, but this is more holistic because this policy is from prep school till high schools and also higher educational institutions, colleges. So higher educational institutions are colleges. In colleges, the target which has been set is increasing the gross enrollment ratio to 50%. Currently it is 29%. So gross enrollment ratio means how many of the students as a proportion of total number of population is enrolled in higher educational programs. So it is 29. China has reached that 50-55%. So higher the number of people in higher educational institutions, it gives a signal that the economy is transforming into knowledge-based economy rather than informal economy. Then there would be a provision of academic bank of credit, wherein scores they would be more related to credits, earning the credits by passing those various semesters and examination. And that would mean if the person wants to exit at some point of time, he would be allowed, because there would be a provision of multiple entry and exit. Suppose the person has reached, there is a 4-year program, after 3rd year he feels that he has got better job opportunity and he can do the 4th year after later stage, then he would be allowed if he has earned specific credit pertaining to that particular subject or that particular curriculum which he has finished. So it is more like कितना credit earn किया और कितना exit आप ले सकते हो कहाँ पे. Then NTA would be having, this has been implemented, NTA has been formed, that would be creating the common entrance examinations to higher educational institutions, but NTA would be looking into those general streams only. General streams examination like CUET. It's not IITs and all those examinations would be taken up by the bodies that they have. Professional examinations would be taken up by those bodies only. It's all about the general examinations. Then we'll have Higher Educational Commission of India, which will look into 4 parameters. HECI. It would be looking into the standard setting for non-professional courses. I'm talking about our non-professional courses. Professional courses, we have other bodies like National Medical Commission, that is looking into the medical aspect. So HECI would be transforming the UGC and all those things. So it would be standard setting, the regulation of bodies and funding, how those institutions and colleges are getting fund, that would be looked after by the HECI, and accreditation. How these rankings, A plus category colleges, B, these ratings and rankings would also be done by the HECI, but that would be more generalized streams rather than professional, because in technical education we have AICTE, for medical we have NMC, for law we have other body, for general education we will be having this.
तो सर जैसे
How many people graduate every year? If you can guess, there are more than 80 to 90 lakh people who graduate every year. Out of it, only 30 lakh, not even 30 lakh, are actually going into professional examinations or professional bodies or professional courses like engineering, mathematics, or medical, law. So all those 60 lakhs are actually going into those non-professional courses. So idea is to streamline those non-professional courses also, which are lagging behind in terms of curriculum also, the way it is being taught in those colleges.
सर आपने जो NEP नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में 11th 12th और 9th 10th में जो 4 साल है उसमें कोई स्ट्रीम नहीं होगी, मल्टीडिसिप्लिनरी.
But the idea, it is all about non-tech. If the person is aspiring to be an IIT graduate, then he needs to take up science, engineering at that time only, because he needs to compete in the IIT JEE examinations. What I have said, it's all about generalized streams. Suppose you feel that you have taken engineering, you want to pursue engineering and you want to give JEE mains examinations, and you have not taken English, physics, chemistry, math, then you won't be allowed. Got it? It's all about general.
If I take up English and literature, I can take maths.
You can take math, but you cannot give JEE mains. You can choose another way of excelling in your life, not by going to IITs and NITs. You won't be allowed to do this. This is the idea. Okay. Similarly, we have National Health Policy. So this was brought in 2017, and based on this policy we have a scheme that would be discussed, what is that scheme? Ayushman Bharat Yojana. The scheme is Ayushman Bharat Yojana, which has been specifically designed to fulfill the goals or fulfill the visions which are prescribed in the National Health Policy. So it expands the whole meaning of health from various perspectives. It includes preventive health care, promotive, curative. Curative means after that the person has got disease, the way he recovers or cures. Then it is palliative care. What is that palliative care? To come out of those pains and agony which are experienced, like a person is going under treatment for chemotherapy, there are many other treatments which is so painful, it needs special attention. So that comes under palliative care. Then also rehabilitation, to make sure that he also regains the functional autonomy, again rejoins, he again becomes fully fit to work all in a usual basis. So every holistic perspective to health, rather than having compartmentalized like preventive, curative, you need to have all the holistic map related to healthcare. Apart from that, life expectancy is being, the aim is to reach that 70 years of age. Currently we have reached that 69 years. As per the latest, by 2024 we have reached that 69. So this is more achievable, these targets are more achievable. The total fertility ratio, it has been aimed to be 2.1, which is the replacement level. Replacement level is The idea is a family of male and female is replacing by having 2 kids. So the population would be stable. This has been reached as per the latest data. We have gone, in fact, we have reached to 2.0, and it is projected that we will fall, the fertility ratio would fall to as low as 1.7 or 1.7 by 2035, 1.5 by 2050, and mere 1.2 by 2100. And these are alarming. So our population is getting stabilized at a very faster rate than projected, and that means that the burden of old age people is going to rise. So there is a very little window. What we had projected that we'll have that demographic window till 2060s, it would start tapering down by 2045, 50 only. This is the idea. Okay. Apart from that, there are various other specific criteria and specific goals, like reduction in 40% of prevalence of stunting and all those malnourishment and hunger related things, reduction in tobacco prevalence, increasing the health expenditure by from 1.1% to 2.5%. We have reached that 2% mark. 2% is the thing that we have achieved. The total budget, it includes health center as well as the state combined. So this policy is something we can say that the targets are more realistic rather than very visionary, which is beyond the ability to be realized. Now we'll see the scheme parts. So this is more factual information that you need to know. So the idea is Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana encourages parents to build corpus for their girl child. So it is a part of Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme or the campaign, and it gives a very high interest rate, 8.2%. To add to that, there are various income tax exemptions also which are given. And that account can be open any time till the girl attains the age of 10 years. अगर 11वें साल पे खोलोगे तो it won't be allowed. From 0 till 10, the account can be opened any time, and only one account is allowed. You cannot have multiple accounts for same girl child, and the maximum deposit is 1.5 lakhs per year. Apart from that, 50% is allowed at the time of 18 years if the girl goes for higher education. See how the scheme is getting transformed. पहले शादी के लिए वो partial withdrawal होता था, अब education के लिए partial withdrawal का. This is how India is progressing in terms of social parameters, wherein the girl education is also getting the due importance. We do not have any parallel scheme for boys. So this is the idea. Apart from that, the maturity of the account would be 21 years from the date of opening, but the deposits are allowed only for 15 years. तो 15 से 21 के बीच में whatever has been deposited will only get the interest. Extra deposits नहीं कर सकते. 8वें साल पे खोला, 8 से लेके 15 साल ऐड कर दो, उतने तक deposits are allowed. After that उसके ऊपर फिर 6 साल ऐड कर दो, the money would be given after 21 years. This is the idea, but the interest would keep on adding. At that withdrawal, when the amount would be withdrawn. Close हो जाएगा. Account gets closed. Okay. Then we have Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana for senior citizens, specifically 60 years plus. On the same lines, it assures a return of pension at 7.4% annually. So, and the policy is for 10 years, and also this policy can be only bought from LIC of India. So LIC of India is the administrative authority for this particular Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana, and whatsoever is the amount that is exempted from the GST. Apart from that, the maximum amount that can be deposited is 15 lakh per subscriber. Okay, similarly we have similar scheme. So this is a kind of bond which is bought. Similarly we have senior citizens saving scheme. This is for again for senior citizens, but the limit earlier this also had a limit of 15 lakh, but this got increased in the last budget 2023. The increase was twice कर दिया गया. Now up to 30 lakh per subscriber or per person can be deposited, and the maturity is 5 years. Earlier there was a one time extension for 3 years only. मतलब 5 साल के बाद you had the provision to get it extended for 3 years more, but the interest would change as per the prevailing rate at that time. 5 साल जिस समय हमने लगाया, what is the interest that you will be getting would be the interest at the time of subscribing. After the 5th year you again go and say that I want to get my account extended, so whatsoever would be the interest rate at that time, that would be the prevailing interest that would accrue for the next 3 years. But it has been changed now, it can be extended multiple times. Earlier it was for only 3 years, now it could be extended for a block, 5 साल के block में multiple times it can be extended. And also it has exemptions under the Income Tax Act, or similarly the tax exemption. That particular section is 80C. Whenever we say we get income tax exemption, what is that provision of Income Tax Act? It is the 80C section, under which we get the Sukanya. We can only have 1.5 lakh of rebate. Either it could be investment in this scheme through EPF, through Sukanya. We cannot say कि हर में 1.5 lakh सब में लगा के we can say कि all the income that we are generating that should be exempted under 80C. That is not allowed. Even if we have invested 5 lakh rupees through multiple sources, like PPF में भी 1.5 lakh लगा दिया, Sukanya 1.5 lakh, the maximum amount that we can get exemption is 1.5 lakh only. Those money would get interest, but we won't claim exemption on income tax ground. ठीक है? Current rate is 8.2%. Now these were the part related to the financial. Now this particular scheme is related to the health. So Ayushman Bharat Yojana. Ayushman Bharat Yojana has been launched to realize or achieve the objectives of national health policy. So it has two components. First is health and wellness center that specifically targets primary health care and जैसे वैक्सीन्स हो गया, आयुष related, yoga and all those things are related under health and wellness center. This name has been changed to Ayushman Arogya Mandir. So health and wellness centers, all those primary health centers, PHCs, the urban PHCs, जितने भी ये सब public primary health care centers at the village and block levels, that is getting transformed into more holistic approach. PHCs में क्या होता है, bandage, छोटा vaccination, all those things, it is getting transformed by way of additional investments to get it more into health and wellness part, and it is being termed as Ayushman Arogya Mandir. There was a controversy because of that, because that included Mandir. So it should ideally not have been incorporated. I don't know why the government has actually cared. Apart from that, there is another component that looks specifically into the secondary and tertiary healthcare. Tertiary is more very high, kind of very costly operations, and all those things come under tertiary healthcare. So these healthcare are being extended by way of health insurance, by way of health insurance. So again, those people who belong to BPL and those who are not in the excluded list of SECC data. Exclusion list meaning those who are included as per SECC mandate. Those families are getting the Ayushman Bharat and Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana based card, health insurance card, wherein there is a cap of 5 lakh rupees per family per year, and that is that is not dependent on the number of people, or you can say number of people in a family. अगर 4 भी हो तब भी मिलेगा, 10 भी हो तब भी मिलेगा. नहीं, the whole family gets 5 lakh. Not easy. अलग अलग नहीं. The idea is the whole, it's family based rather than individual based. Okay. And it is per year. It's all about health insurance. Up to a maximum of 5 lakh rupees can be used as tertiary and healthcare expenditure. That would be financed through health insurance companies, and the premium would be paid by the government to those health insurance companies. The individual families won't be needing to pay the health insurance. How insurance works? The particular subscriber to the health insurance pays premium, and it is the health insurance company that pools all those premium to give health insurance benefits to those subscribers. So rather than the individuals or the poor families paying those health insurance premiums, it is the government who would be paying the premium. Got it? Now we will see the next. It's Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana, specifically targeting the generic medicines. So who is the administrative authority? It is Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. Whenever any medicine, pharma related things are there, it is the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. But when it is health related thing, it is Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So this is the difference. So there are two types of schemes. I forgot to mention. There are two types of schemes. One is central sector scheme. Other is centrally sponsored schemes. There are more than 650, I guess 750 central sector schemes and more than 65 centrally sponsored schemes. So it is very difficult to know all the schemes. So rather than knowing all the schemes, it is better to know the flagship schemes, specifically those which have been launched in the last 5 years and all those schemes which are flagships. Swachh Bharat Mission, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, those schemes which have specifically been launched after 2014. So Jan Aushadhi, earlier this scheme was launched in 2008 as Jan Aushadhi scheme. It has been renamed as Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana in 2018. So idea is creating demand by ensuring that medical practitioners or doctors recommend the use of generic medicines in their prescription, and also creating awareness among public to use generic medicines, because we have very high out of pocket expenditure, OOPE. The total amount of health bill, out of which more than currently it is around about 48%. If 100 rupees is the total health expenditure, 48 rupees is being paid out of pocket, and majority of them goes to the medicine related expenses, because those expenses are not covered as a part of health insurance. So making sure that if people switch to generic medicines, the cost of expenditure on medicine would go down, and that would reduce the healthcare cost. Every medicine has a specific salts which are mentioned, the ingredients which are mentioned at the back. So those are very inexpensive. इतना cheap होता है कि 10 रुपए के मेडिसिन में 10 पैसे का लग रहा है. salts. So rather than mention using those branded medicines wherein the profits are going to pharma companies, the government has said that we will be having those Jan Aushadhi Kendra where those salt based, rather than prescribing a specific Cipla based medicine, the doctor should prescribe, okay, you need to get some azithromycin for antibiotics. So azithromycin 500 mg, and let the person decide where he wants to purchase. Azithromycin would cost not more than 2 rupees. So go to generic medicine shop and get that azithromycin rather than buying Cipla or specific Ranbaxy based medicine that would cost more. This is the generic medicine. Apart from that, there are many patents also. So many branded medicines have patents, but generic medicines are those whose patents have expired and whose copy is allowed. Many pharma companies, they are allowed to produce generic medicines based on the active salts and the mixture of salts which are given in the backside. So this Pariyojana not only covers only drugs but also covers certain surgical items. So drugs also and surgical items. Then we have Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. As RTE was more specific to 6 to 14 years, we wanted, there are 3 schemes in India related to education specifically which are run by Ministry of Education. First is Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, SSA. Another is Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan. And another one is Rashtriya Uchtar Shiksha Abhiyan. So Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan tries to add up these two together or subsume these two together. Apart from that, it also includes आंगनवाड़ी वाला भी. तो अर्ली चाइल्डहुड केयर एंड एजुकेशन फ्रॉम आंगनवाड़ी टिल क्लास 12th, because उच्चतर शिक्षा is higher education and higher education is from 18 years plus. So this particular thing tries to incorporate 3 years till 18 years. 3 to 6 is early childhood care and 6 to 14 is primary and upper primary, and 14 to 18 is secondary and senior secondary. 9th, 10th secondary, 10th, 11th, 12th and senior secondary. So in a way, what is the vision of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4? Every years are getting incorporated under the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. So this is the idea. At the same time, so all those Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan and teachers education, that has been subsumed into Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. Apart from that, there is a special focus on foundational literacy and numeracy. And what is that particular scheme? Nipun Bharat. Nipun Bharat, that specifically targets improvement in foundational literacy and numeracy, because it has been found there is a survey by Pratham, that is an NGO that surveys the quality of education. See, we have reached the gross enrollment ratio of 100% in primary education and upper primary education, but it is the quality of education which is under question. So this Pratham NGO comes up with annual survey on education report, the ACER report, which mentions how the quality of education in terms of solving basic mathematics, reading basic English books and other literary books, are children, are they able to do those things or not? So to make sure that the quality of education also improves rather than only enrollment ratios, so we have made a more holistic scheme, that is a kind of an umbrella scheme that looks into the teachers education aspect also. So द टैगलाइन हैज़ बीन चेंज्ड. ठीक है, सब पढ़े, सबको शिक्षा, अच्छी शिक्षा. ठीक है, पढ़ेगा भारत तभी तो बढ़ेगा भारत, से सबको शिक्षा, अच्छी शिक्षा. दिस इज द आइडिया. Similarly, like Samagra Shiksha, to make sure that there are many other schemes related to nutritional deficiencies and malnutrition, targeting those malnutrition, like at early childhood level. At early childhood, so Anganwadi or ICDS not only sees the educational aspect, it also sees the nutritional aspect. So at early childhood we have this scheme in this ICDS, Poshahar, wherein food is given to those who are attending those prep schools or Anganwadi. So Poshahar. Similarly, in primary schools we have midday meal. So every nutritional related targeted schemes in those years are subsumed into more umbrella scheme known as Poshan Abhiyan, that targets not only nutrition which is being run by many departments like education department. It is a multi-ministerial initiative wherein various other ministries which have also similar nutritional target programs that has been subsumed into a more holistic program that is known as Poshan Abhiyan. So as to make sure whatever the targets that we had, stunting, wasting and that undernourishment under national health policy, that should be attacked from a holistic point of view by getting an umbrella or an overarching body. ठीक है. So the target is reduction of stunting, undernutrition, anemia. There are many other schemes also like Sabla. There is a Sabla scheme to make sure that anemia tablets are given to this adolescent girls up to adolescent. Those are also subsumed under Poshan Abhiyan only. It's more holistic. Like Samagra Shiksha goes into educational aspect, Poshan goes into the health and nutritional aspect to subsume to realize the vision of national health policy under this portion and also national education policy through Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. So it is an integrated approach to tackle malnutrition, and every September of the month of the year, Poshan Ma is celebrated, wherein it's a more awareness program, stock taking as to how it is going, how is it progressing at the lowest level. So stock taking exercise is taken up, and also there are various other promotional events which are also run. ठीक है, midday meal has been subsumed under this. एक्ट्स लाके क्यों, एक्ट्स क्यों लाना है, इट्स अ स्कीम.
लेकिन सर नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी है, वो तो पॉलिसी है, तो वो स्टेट इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे एक्ट्स लाके, या ऐसे ही
क्या होता है, when there is a policy there are two ways. One could be through act, one could be through schemes. So to realize those policies, either there could be an act or it could be through scheme.
और सर अभी पूरे इंडिया में मैंडेटरी नहीं है सारे स्टेट्स में.
Every policy that is, because education is a subject which is in, education is in the concurrent list. So some of the provisions like the elementary education and some of the provisions related to the subjects, pedagogy, it is governed by the respective state acts.
और सर अभी 3 साल जब पूरे हो गए थे नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी की, तो जैसे नवोदय स्कूल्स है या कुछ सेंट्रल स्कूल्स हैं, वो उन्होंने वोकेशनल एजुकेशन में काम करा है कि उनको सिखाया जा रहा है, बट जो नॉर्मल स्कूल्स हैं वहाँ पे तो नहीं सिखाया जा रहा है.
नहीं, but the idea is this policy is to be fully implemented by 2030. So it is all the central schools that will also always be the head start रहेगा. They will first implement, then it would pass on to those high high quality private schools, they will implement, then the normal schools would be following it up, because we need the data. All those central schools, they have budgetary allocations from the government, so that is why they are ready to implement it. Got it? Every policy need not to have to be backed by a specific act. The government can also run parallel schemes. It could be either centrally sponsored or central sector, depending on it, to fulfill the visions of the policies. Okay? Then we have Mission Shakti. So it is more holistic program for women empowerment. So what the government is doing? The government is consolidating various schemes which were in tidbits, scattered, which were being run by different ministries, that led to overlapping of jurisdictions. The government is coming up with an umbrella or a more holistic and comprehensive approach under a single heading. So similarly, we had various women empowerment schemes, like if you see the schemes, Sakhi, One Stop Center, this was one scheme, like Women Helpline, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Similarly, we had Swadhar Grih. Swadhar Grih was more related to those females which were rescued from victims, from those like sex trafficking and those things. They used to get those free shelter, free food and all those helps under the Swadhar Grih schemes. Similarly, working women hostels. So all those things are consolidated because they are in a way directly or indirectly related to women, and they are related to women empowerment. So they have this an overarching body in terms of a mission mode scheme has been brought in under the name of Mission Shakti. So it has two components. For one is Sambal, for safety and security of women. Another one is Samarth, to improve the empower him. पहले उनको normalize करना है, those who are at the danger or those who are vulnerable, पहले उनको safe and secure करना है, then उनकी capabilities को improve करना है, augment करना है and empower करना है, so that they can come and they can also be economically independent. So all those schemes, the government has not brought a new scheme. It has only collated all those schemes. अलग अलग ministries कर रही होंगी, Ministry of Health कर रही होंगी, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Ministry of Labor and Employment, Ministry of Finance. Overarching body में एक Mission Shakti बना दिया. That would be looking like Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana. That is more like a partial wage is given for those women who are pregnant and who cannot come and join the workforce. Informal work, I'm saying, because those formal employees, they are getting the maternity benefits. So those all schemes which are directly related to women has been included. तो वह health में ये किया, education में ये किया, women empowerment में ये किया. And this is how you need to quote also. Whenever those questions come in mains or even in prelims examination, you need to apply your brain at that time as to how this could be directly related to whatever the question has been given. Even in writing answers also, you need to quote these current schemes rather than writing those obsolete purana wala data utha kar you keep on writing things which are Pradhan Mantri Swarojgar, Gram Swarojgar Yojana, and those are obsolete. Try to quote those things which are relevant and which are more current. ठीक है? Now this is the second last. So there are various, like we had pension schemes for senior citizens. Likewise, we have pension schemes which are more contributory. Those Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana and senior citizens same schemes were more interest based schemes. So the corpus was needed to be paid at one time lump sum, and it was the interest which was given as pension. Here it is more like those, it is low, these schemes are contributory pension scheme wherein like small and marginal farmers, the government says that for those who are between the age of 18 to 40 years, the government has brought 3 schemes. For small and marginal farmers, in the name Pradhan Mantri Kisan Man Dhan Yojana, wherein small amount, the maximum amount is rupees 220 per month. So the subscriber would be subscribing to the scheme by paying a maximum amount of 220 rupees per month till 60 years. Till 60. अगर मान लो उसने 18 पे ज्वाइन किया होगा, the amount of premium would be very low as rupees 55. And if the subscriber had joined the scheme at 40 years, 40 के आगे the person cannot join. And it would keep on adding, and after 60 years a pension of rupees 3000 per month would be given till the rest of his life. For small and marginal farmers, similar scheme is Pradhan Mantri Krishi Man Dhan Yojana. For unorganized sector, those street vendors and other casual workers, the similar scheme is Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Man Dhan Yojana. Similar provisions. And third scheme is Atal Pension Yojana. It is for all. It is also a provision of 18 to 40 years. But here the pension can be chosen. That ranges between rupees 1000 to rupees 5000. So the subscriber can choose how much amount of pension he expects when he retires, and based on the package or subscription chosen, the premium would be paid. This scheme, so if we had this Atal pension scheme, what was the need to bring these schemes? Aren't they overlapping?
सर ये बाद में ऊपर वाली बात में लाई गई है क्या?
हाँ, बाद में लाई गई. But what was the need of bringing those schemes? The idea was this scheme has been brought in by Ministry of Agriculture. Similarly, this has been brought by Ministry of Labour. Interministerial rivalry also goes as to how to control the finances. This was brought in by Ministry of Finance. So having different provisions, बस इसलिए लिखा है. They could have changed this thing also, but why did they bring it? It's not. It's only who is actually administering the particular scheme. So respective mandans are administered by respective ministries, but Atal Pension Yojana and all those schemes are monitored by the Ministry of Finance. Okay. And this is the last scheme that would be dealt today. Rashtriya Vayushri Yojana. It was launched in 2017 by MSJ, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. The idea is to provide aid and assistance, assisted living devices like walking sticks, crutches, other crutches to those senior citizens who are belonging to BPL category. Earlier it was only exclusive for BPL category, but an amendment was added to this particular scheme by adding other particular senior citizens also, but having an income less than rupees 15,000 monthly. ठीक है? It gives assisted devices for those people who are disabled. So this was all about the schemes, policies and acts. Although there are many acts and schemes, try to make sure that you read schemes which has been launched in the last 5 years and more specifically last 2 years. Budget. Go to the budget document and see what has been launched and try to read the fine prints. This is the idea about the tackling of schemes, and also try to look on the amendments to various acts. Although I have tried to gather all the relevant details which are necessary to be remembered as far as acts are concerned, but try to make sure that you also read from different sources. So that is all. Thank you.